Students, let us come to the chapter number 16. In chapter 15, we find that Henry accepted to another American hospital, and Catherine also comes as a nurse in the same hotel. And in this chapter, we see that the deep love affair between Henry and Catherine. Catherine devoted completely herself to Henry. She spent night in Henry's room, and she tries to probe him about his past love affair, if any, but he keeps saying that he has no other girl before. She shows a natural, warmly inquisitiveness about his previous involvement, if any. Then Henry says that he had loved other girls. He had loved nobody before. He said that. Then Catherine said that he was lying, but added that you are just mine. That's true. You have never belonged to anyone else. साथ में वो ये भी ऐड कर देती है कि वो किसी और से बिलोंग नहीं करता. He just belonged to her. And here we see that she is completely devoted to Henry. The depth of her love is clear from the way when she completely surrenders herself towards him. She promises to do just what he wants her to do. Catherine says to Henry, Catherine says to Henry towards the end of this chapter, I want what you want, and there is not any me anymore, just what you want. यहाँ वो completely devoted कर देती, तुम्हारी जो सारी इच्छाएं वो मेरी है, इसके अलावा उसका कुछ भी नहीं है. And here we can see Catherine is just as a simple, honest and sincere girl. Henry seems to be sincere towards her also, but he doesn't become too emotional. His reaction to her are stated in such remarks when he says, darling, 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 you are so lovely. Beside, one should note his insistence on the physical relationship. Come to the bed again, he says. Here we see that he is not too emotional. He is only showing his interest in physical relationship with her. He only attracted towards her beauty. In chapter 17, we find many other realistic detail like any other chapter. For instance, here we see that there are 3 other patients in the hospital now besides Henry. A thin young man with malaria, another a nice young man with malaria, and another a man malaria and jaundice, and third a fine young man who has been injured while handling an explosive cell. वो भी है, उसमें बम धमाके में हुआ है घायल. All of them were American. Another detail we come to know in this chapter that Ferguson, who is also a nurse in that hospital, she is also fine towards Henry, and she had a brother who is in army. Such details add to the realistic except, and all the nurses in the hospital are nice towards Henry except Miss Van Kempen, who is the medical superintendent of all them. And in this chapter we see that the operation took place and it takes 2.5 hours. When Henry recovered consciousness, Miss Gag told him that Dr. Valentini had done a wonderful job on his knee. Catherine now spent too much time with him as she could. Henry loved her very much. She also loved him. During the day, Henry slept most of the time. The other nurse, Miss Ferguson, was nice to Henry, and she, when Henry asked her whether he will be able to wedding with Catherine, then she said that most probably they would never get married. She warned him against the making Catherine unhappy. वो कहती है कि यदि उसने कैथरीन को unhappy किया, then it would be very bad for him. And now Catherine also spends night with him. And she also decided that she would take 3 days for rest, 3 nights for rest के लिए चाहती है. After this period of rest, Catherine come back again. It was क्योंकि she and Henry had met after having been away from each other on a long journey. अब वो दोनों एक लॉन्ग जर्नी पे जाना चाह रहे हैं. Come to the chapter 18. After a few days, Henry was well enough to walk about on crutches. अब वो crutches पे चढ़ने के crutches के सहारे चलने के एबल हो जाता है. He started going to the city restaurant in the company of Catherine. अब वो दोनों रेस्टोरेंट्स में जाते हैं. He tried a large variety of wines which Italy produced. In the hospital, he would lie often watching Catherine sitting by his side. Sometimes she would lie down with him, and he would touch her cheeks, her forehead, with the tips of his fingers and saying that she was very beautiful. During the night, she made it a point to stay in his room, and then he would make love to her. Besides all big time, they had many small ways of making love. And here we can say that their physical relationship also developed between Catherine and Henry. Henry said that when Henry said that he wanted to marry her, जो वो अपने express करता है mainly for her sake, but then Catherine says that there is not any me, I am you, and don't make up a separate me. वो कहती कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि मैं अलग हूँ, मैं तुम्हारे अंदर ही हूँ, तुम मुझे तुमसे अलग मत समझो. बट हेनरी सेड दैट ही हैड बीन थिंकिंग दैट गर्ल्स ऑलवेज वांटेड टू बी मैरी. तो लड़कियाँ हमेशा शादी करना चाहती है. टू दिस कैथरीन रिप्लाई दैट दे डू, अदर लड़कियाँ करती है. बट आई एम मैरिड, मैं मैरिड हूँ. आई एम मैरिड टू यू, मेरी तुमसे ही शादी हो चुकी है. एंड डोंट आई मेक यू, क्या मैं तुम्हारी अच्छी वाइफ नहीं हूँ. देन शी टोल्ड हर दैट शी हैड नो अदर रिलीजन एक्सेप्ट हिम, उसके अलावा उसका कोई धर्म नहीं है. यू आर माई रिलीजन, यू आर ऑल आई हैव गॉट. हेनरी सेड दैट ही वुड मैरी हर द डे शी वांटेड हिम टू. तब हेनरी उसे कहते कि वह उसी से शादी करेगा जब वो चाहेगी. ही आस्क्ड हर टू प्रॉमिस दैट शी वुडंट लीव हिम फॉर समवन सेक. वो ये भी कहती कि उसको कभी नहीं छोड़ेगी. एंड शी गिव द प्रॉमिस दैट आई विल नॉट एवर लीव यू फॉर समवन एल्स. वो उससे प्रॉमिस कर लेती है कि वो कभी भी नहीं छोड़ेगी. शी सेज दैट इफ दे गोट मैरिड द हॉस्पिटल वुड सेंड हर अवे. वो यही कहती कि यदि उसने शादी कर ली तो हॉस्पिटल वाले उसको कहीं और भेज देगी, वो तब उसके साथ नहीं रह पाएगी. सो इन दिस चैप्टर we see that both are devoted to each other, and the war is quite forgotten in this chapter. The love between Henry and Catherine has further deepened, and Catherine's self-surrender to Henry is also expressed in this chapter, and they spend many nights with each other. So we can say that their love is growing day by day. In chapter 19, we see that the summer season has been passed, and the Italians had won many victories, and Henry is still improving health. Miss Van Kempen, who is rude towards Henry, and she is against the intimacy between Henry and Catherine. Now she is reconciled herself to the fact. The hospital was quite busy too, so she has no time to kept an eye on both of them. Now within this time, Henry sometimes go to the Anglo-American clubs, and sometimes he went to some other cafe. In the course of one of his outing, he made his acquaintance with, he come to know Mr. and Mrs. Meyers. Mr. Meyers is a short old man with a white mustache, and Mrs. Meyers is also a big busted woman who wore ब्लैक साटिन के कपड़े पहनती है. मिसिज मेयर रेफर टू ऑल द पेशेंट्स इन द अमेरिकन हॉस्पिटल एज हर डियर बॉयज़. यहाँ क्या है, मिसिज मेयर को अमेरिकन जितने भी हॉस्पिटल में पेशेंट्स हैं वो उनको एज ए डियर बॉय बुलाती है, क्योंकि उनको अमेरिकन से काफ़ी लगाव है. एंड शी ऑफन कैरीज गिफ्ट फॉर देम. हेनरी ऑल्सो make his familiar with two other fellows who were students of music and an Italian from San Francisco whose name was Ettore Moretti. उसके साथ भी वो अपनी फ्रेंडशिप बनाता है. who was serving in Italian army, and he is a joking type of person. He always makes fun of by talking about two singing boys. And here in this chapter we also come know about Catherine's disliking of Ettore at all. Though he was a war hero, but she says that he bored everybody, while Ettore was too conceited and talked too much. She referred to him as a dreadful boy. She also made fun of Mrs. Meyer's habit of रेफरिंग टू द अमेरिकन पेशेंट्स एज हर डियर बॉयज. वो उसको भी पसंद नहीं करती है. आउटसाइड इन दिस चैप्टर वी ऑल्सो कम टू नो अबाउट वन ऑफ Catherine's fear, you can say Catherine's phobia of raining. Catherine said that she was afraid of rain. She told Henry that she would always love him in the rain. परंतु वो कहती है कि मैं रेन में भी उससे लव करेगी. in the snow and in the hail, even storm may be. On being pressed to give reason why she was afraid of the rain, she said that she was afraid because sometimes she saw herself dead in the rain. उसने खुद को रेन में ही मरे हुए देखा है, just imagination में. and sometimes she saw Henry dead in the rain. Then she began to cry, saying that she wished she were not afraid of the rain. उसकी इच्छा है कि उसका ये डर है वो दूर हो जाए. So in this chapter we see that the rain is used as a symbol of disaster because Catherine too much fear of her, and she joins rains with the death of herself and Henry. And in this chapter we also come to know about two or three amusing character, we can see comic elements through the character of Ettore, through Mr. and Mrs. Meyer. In chapter 20, we see that one day in the afternoon, Henry went to the races in the company of Catherine, Ferguson, and Crowell Rogers. Crowell Rogers is also a young man who has been wounded badly when handling an explosive cell, and he was also hospitalized with Henry. They all pooled 100 lira, that is the currency of Italy, and staked the money on a horse named जेपेलक. उस हॉर्स पे वो इतनी मनी लगा देते हैं क्योंकि वो हॉर्स रेसिंग में पार्टिसिपेट करने वाले हैं. दिस हॉर्स वॉज टू पे 35 to 1. इस हॉर्स को किसी को 35 पे करने होते हैं. दैट मीन्ट दैट इफ दिस हॉर्स वॉन इट वुड गिव 3,500 lira to Henry and his party. The horse actually won and Catherine was very happy. But instead of getting the promised amount of money, the party got only 200 lira. Catherine said that she didn't like this crooked racing. They went and had some drinks at the war. वहाँ से चले जाते हैं. At the time of next race, क्रोवेल गोट अ टिप फ्रॉम मिस्टर मेयर्स, क्रोवेल को मिस्टर मेयर से टिप मिलती है, एंड हेनरीज कंपेनियन staked 100 lire on number 5. The horses which has been suggested by Mr. Mayor, जो कि मिस्टर मेयर ने हॉर्स सजेस्ट किया है, वो उस पर जो है वो 100 लीरा वो लगाते हैं. Number 5 actually won, but instead of getting the promised amount of money, they received only 10 lire. Catherine was now feeling a little tired of others and wanted to be alone with Henry. So the two of them moved away and backed a horse called Light for Me. उस पे चढ़, इस horse का नेम है, उस पे चढ़ के चले जाते हैं. But this horse finished 4th in a field of 5. एंड सो दे लॉस्ट द स्टेक मनी. वो चौथे स्थान पे रहता है 5 हॉर्सेज के साथ. कैथरीन टोल्ड हेनरी दैट शी ऑलवेज प्रेफर टू बी अलोन विद हिम. सो इन दिस चैप्टर वी गिव्स अस एन इंसाइट इनटू द माल प्रैक्टिस, जो गलत तरीके की एक प्रैक्टिस थी, विच वर प्रीवेल्ड एट horse race course in Milan. Such malpractice are common in racing all over the world. Every people all over indulge in such type of activities. In this chapter we also come to know about the behavior of Mr. Mayers. He never took his wife into confidence about his horses whom he staked. He never tell his wife what horses he was playing and whether he has lost or win. When Mayers gives a tip to Crowell, he says that do not tell his wife that he has given it to you. And we also come to know another trait of his character, that he never drinks wine. It may be pointed out here that racing episode has nothing to do with the main story of the novel. It is just an incident introduced to lend variety and breadth of the story. And in this chapter we also know about Catherine's temperament. She doesn't like too much with another's company. She says to Henry, "Darling, I can't stand to see you so many people. I only want to spend too much of time with him." So here we come to know that Catherine is totally devoted to Henry and she spends most of her time with him.